Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very special holiday edition of Vox Vomitus Eggnog Extravaganza.
Woohoo!
Woo! I am your host, Jennifer Ann Gordon, the author of the award-winning novel Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent, as well as the hotel series and Pretty Ugly. Joining me, as always, is my Vox Vomitus Vixen, my special holiday edition of Vox Vomitus Vixen, Allison Martine, authoress of The Bourbon Books, which includes Dibs, Since September, and Move on Melinda.
Hello, Jen.
Hey!
It's just
Happy
the two of us.
holidays. It's just the two of us. So if
I
people
know.
if they're like tuning in going, oh, I wonder who they have as a guest. No guest. The guest today is Eggnog and Mistletoe and Holiday Cheer.
Exactly.
For those of you who tuned in last week, we were supposed to have CJ cook this week, but she is unfortunately under the weather, so we were going to have her next week. So our holiday eggnog extravaganza, was pushed forward to this week, which left me scrambling for eggnog last night.
This is all I have left, so I will probably have to nurse it because
That's sad.
my husband really likes eggnog. It's good stuff.
I went looking for eggnog last night, and there was no eggnog to be had. I ended up with some weird pumpkin spice liqueur.
No.
Which was on sale for $3.99 because
yeah, that's why it was on sale, because that sounds terrible.
Yeah, I was just like, "Do you have eggnog?" And they were like, "We have this pumpkin spice liqueur," and I'm like, "That is not eggnog.
That's not even close.
It's not even close." I bought it anyways, and now it's like in my fridge, and it'll probably be there forever.
Yeah, it's not like they offered you oat eggnog or almond nog or something that there's not even the word nog involved.
Nope, no nog, because I was like, "It's nog involved? Does it say pumpkin spice nog?"
That's okay. I know at one point I went to buy what I thought was a flavored creamer and came home with some kind of rice drink instead. I really need to learn to read labels instead of just go, no.
It looks the same.
It looks the same. And Lori, so Jen's still not wearing her glasses, so I will be the official designated reader today. Laurie Schoenfeld says, "Love you both, and I've joined this season with you both, and we love you too, Laurie."
Yay, love you, Laurie. So I will say thank you to my friends Tom and Deb. We stopped by their house last night because we had borrowed some power tools from them, and I mentioned that I was searching for eggnog, and they said, "We have an extra quart of eggnog."
They're your eggnog saviors.
I know. I almost started crying. I was just like, oh, "You're going to give me the nog?
It's an eggnog Christmas miracle.
It's a Christmas miracle."
That's okay. I'm sure everybody in my house is tired of me calling everything a Christmas miracle, because anytime anything goes right, I'm like, "It's a Christmas miracle." They're like, "He has 2 matching socks. That's not a miracle." I'm like, he's wearing pants. That's a miracle.
I was going to say, for a 5-year-old.
Yeah. Oh, he's 6 now. Still.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He's a very
and anybody who's listening,
6.
yeah, we're talking about a child, not my husband. Why is he wearing pants? Like, that would be a different kind of problem.
A different kind of miracle. So
it's all good.
So I'm glad you and I get a chance to just like sit here and gab about the year we've had on our show. The year
It's been a year.
It's been a year. It's been in some ways it's felt like one very long week.
Yeah.
And in some ways it's felt like 10 very long years.
In many ways, it's like we all were going, oh, good, 2020 is over. And then 6 days into January, it was already dumpster fire part due. So,
oh, God. And again, January 6th, we're not going to go back to that. Like, we're not going to reminisce that much about that time. But that was supposed to be our show day.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, because we canceled the show we had that day because we're going, is our government collapsing? We can't be talking to an author live about stuff and sipping our drinks if our government is falling apart. What's happening? So we're sitting there watching the news coverage live, and so now we're happy that 2021 is almost over and we still have a functioning government and all that. But it
nothing's
does feel like
currently hugely on fire close to where we are.
True.
I'm going to be very specific because there's going to be people who were like, actually, everything's still on fire.
Yeah, there's still plenty of fires, but but I do know that there are certain times where you go, we can't in good sanity go forward with the show today, because if we did that, that would be awful. But on other days, if we stopped the show every time something weird was going on, we could never have a show.
I was going to say, we wouldn't have had any shows during 2021 or most of 2020.
Yeah. I mean, we can hope 2022 will be better. This is
Cross our fingers.
cross our fingers, cross our
Something
toes.
that was great this year, besides our show, we've had lots of amazing things on our show. Really great guests. We've read some fantastic books.
Yeah, we
our
have.
show became the #1 video podcast on the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, which was a high point. We got to meet some of our idols.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, we got to wear blindfolds in front of Josh Mallerman.
That is true.
And that sounds so sexy until you go back and like look at the show and you see the blindfolds that we had.
I was wearing my 10-year-old, now 11-year-old's panda sleep mask. This was not you had on your mask, and I remember beforehand we were like comparing, what should we wear? What kind of thing should we do to get in the Bird Box feeling? And you had your mask on and you looked like sexiness. Like,
that's when I had like a blindfold, but then I opted for like the weird goggles.
Steampunk goggles. But either way, you looked very sophisticated, and I looked like a 12-year-old had wandered out of a slumber party.
With the goggles on, if by sophisticated you mean like a fly, like I looked like an insect, then yes, I looked.
You didn't look like an insect.
People are going to go back and look at it and go, oh, she kind of did. A sophisticated insect.
Steampunk fly? Oh, Jeff Goldblum fly.
I'm still emotionally scarred about Jeff Goldblum's fly. That was so gross as a kid.
That's okay. I used that as an explanation to my son how teleporters work, and he was like, I want a Star Trek toy. He did not want to hear about turning into a fly. I'm like, well, just be really careful with what you do there, okay? If this is a functioning teleporter. Just saying.
So Josh Mallerman was probably one of our highlights of this year.
Yeah. Well, that was fun in so many ways, partially because we weren't doing it at a regular time. And then we had this show on a Sunday, and it just felt like a Sunday afternoon where we're just having this crazy time with our masks on and talking about everything and anything. And I think it was that our world record longest podcast?
It was. I was just about to say it also broke all of our records because we went. It's like an hour and a half almost. And at that like hour and a half mark, I was just like, is anybody still going to be watching this?
I don't know.
After an hour and a half. I think it was our highest rated episode that we've ever had too. So I think they watched at least a good chunk of it.
Maybe when we got to the part about ducks, they're like, they've gone off the rails now.
I know. That's why now, if I know a guest has ducks, I just start with ducks.
You start with the ducks. So my leading question is, tell me about your ducks.
Tell me about those ducks you have. For people who might be weirdly stumbling into this podcast for the very first time, welcome to Vox Vomitus. I love ducks and all animals. So, I think Allison and I both research our guests. And so Allison really knows what we look at their bios and if they have a Wikipedia
Jen stalks
page.
them on Instagram looking for cute animal pictures. And
I
like, who's this dog? What's his name? Is he a good boy?
Yeah.
That's basically.
Yeah, that's my research. Yeah. And then, it's pretty much that.
Yeah. And then I usually pull some book out that their book reminded me of. And then they're going, I've never heard of this. Please stop asking me stumper questions. And I never mean to stump a guest. I'm usually like, ooh, is this where you got the idea from? Or did you see this too? And they just shake their head at me going,
I go, no.
That's okay. That's okay too. I think that's one of the great things about books is everybody comes to it and has their own set of references. And you never know when someone reads your book, what they're going to come to and go, oh, I see this connection here. Did you see that? And you're like,
Well, especially I think it happens a lot in genre fiction. I noticed because horror fans, sci-fi fans, fantasy fans, we're usually fans of all of those things. So like horror people love sci-fi and sci-fi people love horror, or at least there's a crossover with some of our authors. So it's fun to kind of find what we think are Easter eggs. Like, oh, did you do this because?
And they're like,
you're obsessed with Peter Straub too? And they're like, well, I am obsessed with Peter Straub, but not.
But not that.
But not that reference.
Like, I wanted it to be this. And they said, no, it was an Easter egg, but not what you hoped it was. I know I did that with Matt Ruff. There was a Margot.
Yes, I was going to say
there was a Margot reference in there. And he's like, no, it's to Margot Robbie because we're besties. I'm like, oh, okay, never mind.
And you're like, oh,
not what I thought.
Yeah, I've seen Margot Robbie in movies.
Yeah, she didn't talk to me though. She's not
friends on Insta.
No, No, just I am like, here are famous people. I'm about 800 feet that way. And not by like a restraining order or anything. I mean, not like that. Just they're not any.
You're not being forced to stand 800 feet away.
Mm-mm.
Well, I feel like this show has gotten us in like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of, because we've met some people who obviously their books have turned into movies, or that they know famous people. So,
we're like, we're talking to them, and usually we're even coherent.
Usually.
Sometimes we get
excited.
Yeah.
I will say I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said that they had never seen 2 co-hosts that were like so in sync. And they even used the words, "It's like you share the same brain." And I was like, "Oh, we do.
Mm-hmm. We do.
We do." Because they said you don't very often speak over each other. And when you do, you're saying the same thing.
Exactly. It's like we finish each other's sandwiches.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, don't say sandwiches. I'm starving.
Sorry. Did you not eat?
I had a really abnormally large lunch because after this, for anybody who wants to know what I do on Wednesday nights, I take a class.
Right
after
so you're
this.
not going to eat until after.
Yeah. So and my class lasts till 10 tonight. So I had like a freakishly large lunch and a snack.
So then you should be fine. Oh, but then I forget it's 6 for you. I'm going, it's only 3. Aren't you still full? And then I remember lunch was hours and hours ago.
Hours ago.
I'm sorry.
And I love eating.
Except for the meat.
Yep. Oh, I do have my puppy next to me, so I should I should stop saying words like lunch.
Does your dog eat lunch?
He doesn't, but he knows that when I eat,
he gets
LUNCH. He gets like a little piece of cheese. CHEESE. Now I'm just going to spell the rest of the episode like I'm sitting next to a toddler.
Your dog can't spell.
He only knows certain letters, like if we. And I can't even say them.
Oh, I know which ones. The ones that end with something. Something's still binging for me. I keep having to turn something off. Sorry. Anyway.
It was a binging that was just like, Jennifer, please stop spelling for the rest of the show.
No, it wasn't. I usually make sure I turn stuff off, but I didn't because I was more casual, because usually for people who don't know how the functioning of things like StreamYard work, we get on beforehand. We make sure our guests' levels are good, because it was just the 2 of us. We just kind of came on and sat there and went, all right, you good? We ready to go? Okay, sure. And then I forgot to close out all my little extra.
We spent a little time fluffing our hair.
My hair still is not doing.
You took some selfies. I took my selfies before I even joined StreamYard.
See, and mine didn't come out, so
I'm sure mine didn't either.
It's fine. It's all good.
It's all good.
Anybody who sees my Instagram is going, you don't need more selfies. You can stop now.
And you and I do the same thing. It's like every time we do a selfie, it's on show day.
Yeah.
Because it's like, don't knock it, everyone.
That'd be awesome.
And there's your bed.
This is it's a screen separator, because I'm sitting here in a larger room and that we have a nice background behind me, but it will fall down if I go whack.
Yeah.
So I'll try to stay more still.
But this is like our 1/2 days a week that we go full glam. I mean, I'm wearing glitter.
You're wearing glitter. I have velvet, and this is like the 1 day a week I put on makeup. And I think, I don't know if I've told the story on the air, but I know I've told you before that after this, I usually go and I take my kids to choir. And I've been seen by people who see me all the time. And sometimes I don't get recognized, because I guess I look so different with, you don't have a hoodie on and a really bad bun. That's interesting.
Well, I will say, when the pandemic first started and we were going out in public a little bit more than we are now, but we were still masked and my hair was in a weird bun, I thought, this is kind of great. No one's going to recognize me.
Yeah.
Because the town, like where we would normally do groceries, myself and my husband are pretty well known in the town. Because we've done a lot of like charity things and we've done a lot of performances.
We're kind of celebrities.
We're kind of celebrities in a very small New Hampshire town. So I thought, no one's going to recognize me. Glasses, bad bun, mask, hobo clothes. Because this was when we were deep in the daytime pajamas versus nighttime pajamas phase. And I remember laughing in the grocery store, and everybody who listens to this podcast knows that I have like a really loud, awful laugh. It's like, so that laugh like burst out of me in the grocery store. And like 4 people came up and they were like, Jennifer, And they're like, oh, look at your hair. And I'm like, oh no, because it was one of those like buns that's
Please don't look at my hair right
like
now.
on top of my head, not even trying to be a ballerina bun, just like smack dab on the top like a bird's nest.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, this is the glamorous life of podcasting.
Yeah, not so much.
But speaking of glamorous, I feel like you have an announcement that is fancy.
I don't know how glamorous it is, but
it's glamorous.
I'm I guess slightly a day early, but I wasn't told to keep it under wraps. But Dibs has won the NN Light Book Award for rom-com for the year. So
yeah,
I have my Dibs here. I don't usually have my book ready, but
cheers to you. And there's a tiny bit of bourbon in my eggnog, so it's
wait,
very
you have
fitting.
bourbon in yours? Okay, well, the only bourbon I have is on that cover. The cover that, if people don't know, she designed the cover. That this is your work.
It was my work.
But yes,
it's very fitting that my work is just a glass of bourbon.
I mean, it's aesthetically, it's accurate. You know,
I know it's accurate for both of our brandings.
It is, and it's funny because there's a lot of talk about book covers and what things should look like, and I feel like mine fit my books because they're not just like every other romance out there, so they kind of look a little different, and they're not cartoony, so they don't have the artistic front that's drawn people that may or may not have all of their features. A lot of times they have no faces. Have you noticed that?
I have noticed that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about that, but they have maybe missing faces, and I'm definitely not.
Sometimes they just have lips, and the lips are like perfect lipstick, and they
have like mine because I don't know what I did.
Your lipstick looks good. I'm wearing a different color today. For those of you who are just listening to this and not watching it,
can you hear that? She's got a different color.
I have a different color lipstick on today. Yeah, I just decided to go all out for the holiday episode. I did a face mask earlier. Mistletoe kiss.
Yeah, we do that. We have that tendency as far as sharing a brain. The day where we go, I just put a color mask on my hair. Me too. Which product? Same product as yours.
Yeah. Are your hands bright red now? Yeah.
Yes. It looks like I murdered something small. Or a cupcake, like just smashed.
Or like a smash a cupcake. Definitely not murdering anything small.
It's all right. It's all good.
So you want to add a little mystery, like start writing crime, start writing.
I'm leaving anything scary and anything murdery. You're on this side. It's so confusing. You're over here. See there. And it's bad enough. I don't know my right from left to begin with, but even then I can see you and I have to point opposite of where you are. This is like making my brain do mirror work. And
no, we don't need that.
I don't have the mental capacity to do that at this hour. Sorry. I used it all up trying to get shoes and socks on my kids.
And you did that. Christmas miracle.
Repeatedly.
We've already talked about it. So this year we've read for this show.
Just for this show.
Like 50 books.
I was gonna say it's close to 50, if not exactly 50. And I know that
there was a couple of I didn't finish on time.
Yeah, certain ones I couldn't. But then people who don't necessarily know, Jen and I each also host a genre-specific show in our wheelhouse. So Jen,
like a spin-off show.
It's a spin-off show. It's like our Frasers. It's our Frasers.
Yeah. It's like our Frasier. This is Cheers.
This is Cheers. Oh, cheers!
Cheers! Cheers!
But Jen hosts. But you do Let's Scare Jennifer to Death, and that's horror and true crime and anything that I'm like about.
Yeah. Anything that you're like, please don't make me read a book where any number of really horrifying things.
I'm not reading The Human Centipede.
I know I'm
not going to read a book that's like that. That's not me. And then I host To the Moon Allison, which is science fiction, fantasy, speculative fiction, and romance, because that's me. So you have to add those books too, as far as how many we've read. But most of what we've read, we've overlapped. So there's a handful that you read and I didn't read, and a handful that I read and you didn't have to read. But generally, our good reads would look pretty darn similar.
Pretty similar. So I feel like we have an amazing book club of you and I.
Of us.
Of us. And what I love so much is I feel like a lot of the times like our tastes overlap too. So when, we cheated, we talked about this a little bit last night when we were like, what are your favorite books out of what we've read together of the year? And And we both said some of the same ones. Like
We
we
did.
both said The Family Plot
Yes,
by
Megan
Megan
Collins.
Collins.
I wish I still want like a tombstone cookie right here to be Megan Collins cookies. Yeah, we were joking. We don't have an official, hey, we're gonna do an award show or anything, but if we did, it would be called the Voxies.
The Voxies.
Because Jen said calling them the Vomits was a bad idea.
It is a bad idea. I feel like it would give
I
the
won
wrong...
the Vomits.
Oh my gosh, I won Best Vomit of Romance. Like, no, that would be bad.
Nobody
would want that. But a Voxy sounds kind of cute. And then that night we could be the Foxy Voxy Vixens.
We would be very, very phenomenal that way.
We would be, yeah. So if we did give out awards, which we're not.
These are just some of the ones that stayed with us. Because also, we've been doing this show about a year and a half now, because we started a year ago summer. And now at this point, we've had so many that we can see patterns that have merged and going, okay, we both like books like this.
Yeah.
These ones didn't really work for us.
And then there are some that you're like, that was just so good, but it doesn't stick. like it's not, the spaghetti's not done yet.
Or it's a Teflon book.
But there are some that I think just have like that zhuzh, that magic factor.
Ones that just stick with you and you're like, I can't get over this book. And why am I still thinking about this book months later?
Mm-hmm. And Megan Collins' A Family Plot definitely had that. So for those of you who haven't read that yet, it is about a very dysfunctional family who was schooled entirely using the art of true crime and serial killers
for your syllabus.
And so they're obviously homeschooled. That's not a school you can go to.
What public school district is this? I'm going to complain.
Exactly. Like, my tax dollars pay for that.
No, they didn't.
They did not. These are homeschooled. Also,
guys, this is fiction. Everything we've read is fiction. We have yet to have a nonfiction author on. At some point, we should.
We will.
But not yet. Hasn't happened.
Not yet. Maybe in the works. Because it's hard to use the words like vomit when we're talking to like about a nonfiction book. If they're like, this is my memoir. And we're like, oh, tell us all the crappy parts that you cut out of your memoir. Because that's, kind of what we talk about on this show.
And then they're like, yeah, that was my childhood trauma. Well, but tell us anyway.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, and I still would love to have one of the books that I loved that I don't think you've read yet is, now I'm going to get the name right, The Theater of War by Brian.
I have not read that.
Stories, I think, only because, and this is why you don't want to read it, you want to listen to it because Adam Driver's the narrator.
That's right.
See, and that one's one of my favorites. So if we could ever get that one on, we don't need the author, we just want Adam Driver.
We could do a podcast where we listen to that the book and just comment on it comment live.
Okay, we should do that because
we should. I don't
know if we're allowed to do that because I'm pretty sure at some point copyright we would have been using way too much, and they're like, you can't keep using.
We'll find out like the exact minute mark that we could use, because I think you can use a certain amount of stuff for like review or promotional purposes. And then we could review that, and then we'll just spend the rest of the time talking about Adam Driver's voice
on girls,
on girls,
and then that time on girls, and then this time when he was in Star Wars. Like, this has nothing to do with the book. I know.
We'll just like play like whatever. If it's like 4 minutes, we can play of like everything that Adam Driver has been in,
and then we'll end it with the SNL skit where he's the old guy,
old man,
making Pete Davidson lose character. That is my favorite.
That's my favorite too. I watch it once every few weeks, probably.
But again, this is one of the books that I've read that you didn't read, so it would not be eligible for a Voxy, which does not exist.
Which it doesn't exist. Imaginary. I think another book that you and I both keep talking about is Sarah Langan's Good Neighbors.
Okay, so Sarah Langan. So here's where one of the things we were talking about. We were talking about, because right now it is award season. There are a lot of people doing their year-end lists or their awards. And we were talking about categories, because sometimes we see things where the categories maybe don't line up with what we think they should. And I know I've seen some, I can't say the word Google, some Goo forms, some lady Goo forms floating around for different categories. And we were talking about how some of the things we love the most don't fit categories. And Sarah Langan's book, we're like, what was this? It's dystopia. It's a set in the future, but it didn't really feel like it was set in the future. It's domestic, and
it's domestic suspense
horror.
meets dystopia meets a little bit of horror.
And then there was the Goonies in there too.
And then there was Goonies, and there was like a coming of age story.
Yes.
And like even like a little bit of like kind of like sci-fi.
Just a touch.
Just a touch, just like a little pinch of it.
Well, and we talked to Sarah about just that kind of placement of it's horror, but not really, and not enough that the book club set can't still have their wine and the book and go, I enjoyed this, because the cover still looked like women's fiction and really approachable.
Yes.
Have like blood and gore, and I won't name names, but there are some designers I see who have these phenomenal horror covers, and Sarah's definitely didn't look like that. It looked very just sweet and approachable.
Yeah, it looked like a book club book.
Yes.
And I know that
there was a cover
club is becoming a category now.
Yeah, and who knew that was a category?
And I feel like that, like, is that the category for like almost all the books that were like, oh, I really liked it, but I don't know where it fits. Like just literary enough, but also like a pinch of genre fiction.
Well, and some of the stuff that I've really liked is definitely genre and literary, but I don't think fits in book club. Like I know one of the ones that I've told you about, but you haven't read yet is Bubblegum. And that one I did not read for this show. And it's seriously like this big, chunky book. And I don't know any book club who would vote to read that. I mean, that would be a really, really small book club. It'd be me and like 2 other gluttons for punishment.
I feel like it would be the same kind of people who would like pick like The House of Leaves.
Yes. And they're going, I'm not even sure where to begin. Let's start drinking. Let's just start with that and see what happens. It's good. It's all good.
Yeah. So Sarah's book didn't fit into kind of any category that in a good way.
Right. It didn't fit neatly in a category. Let's just put it that way. But it fit in a lot of categories.
You know, and she, before Good Neighbors, was primarily known as a horror novelist.
Right.
But she had taken kind of a big chunk of time between her last horror novel and this. So we had Sarah on the show. She didn't come to us through a publicist. She came to us from me stalking her on Facebook. Yeah. What's funny is she's on Facebook, but she's not on Facebook all the time. But when her book was coming out, she was on Facebook more. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot I'm friends with Sarah Langan on Facebook. Because I think I friended her like 10 years ago when I was just like kind of obsessed with like her horror work. And then I was like, oh, I wonder. So I just started like liking everything she posted and like commenting on things and hoping not to seem weird. And then I asked her and she said yes. And she was such a fun guest. She drank scotch and we laughed a lot.
Well, and that was just a phenomenal book. And sometimes we talk about what kind of guests we love to have on. And it's always ideal if we loved the book and the person is really easy to talk to, because sometimes we love the book, but the conversation isn't necessarily easy. And sometimes the book wasn't necessarily our cup of tea, but the author, it was so fun to talk to. And we'll take whatever. We're always happy. But when it's all of those things together, that's just...
Those are the magic books, the magic guests. And we've been very lucky on this show to have, you know, a good combo of books and people and everything. We also had a great time and both loved the book, The Photographer by Mary Dixie Carter.
Yes. Okay. And when Mary Dixie came on, she may be one of the memorable guests as far as where she was doing this from, because she was on vacation and was like, yeah, my kids are down at the water park. I'm like, oh, we're sorry. She's like, I'm not.
Yeah. And then she wanted to drink with us. She was like, I want to have a cocktail. So she like, you know, she's in this hotel and she like, she had a paper cup of wine and it was just like, yes, she was so cute. And
we're like, you're our people.
You're our people. She's like, is it bad that it's in a paper cup? We're like, it's better. No. It's better that it's a paper cup.
Shows how much you wanted this. We'll take it. And that was so much fun. And that book also was one of those where I don't think either one of us really saw that coming.
Nope.
And knowing what was happening with that. And then that's when it's hard to talk about without spoiling any of it, because it's what we've read. I feel like probably if you said, how many books have you read that are fitting loosely in the domestic thriller category, that would probably be our biggest category.
Yeah.
And
because I feel like thriller, domestic suspense, crime-ish, those kind of all like blend together.
Right. Well, and
under like a big subcategory, and it's a very popular like It's a very popular
well, and
genre
because
to
there
write.
are subcategories, and I want to say was it Vera Kurian who told us the difference between a mystery and a thriller? Was that who gave us that explanation? Because those aren't my wheelhouses. I've read both, but I don't think I would have ever known which is which. And they're usually grouped together.
Oh.
But then she was explaining the thriller is kind of moving forward and is fast paced, and a mystery is it had already occurred. So I'm like, oh, that's a definition nobody bothered telling me before, and I think that's good to know.
It took me a long, I feel like it took me until I was like writing what I thought was a thriller when I realized, oh, this is not a thriller. Because like somebody said, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. In the thrillers, and they said like everything opposite of what I was writing. It was like really short chapters, no flashbacks, everything's moving forward. I'm like, oh,
I'm gonna have to rethink this.
Writing a thriller, you know.
Well, it's funny though, because so those who know me off this show know that one of the things I do way too much is I beta. And people don't know what a beta read is. We're like, what the heck's a beta? Because I say this, and my husband likes to go, it's a fish, and he knows. He just likes to make the low hanging fruit joke there. But I recently had the privilege of betaing for one of my friends, and she writes. I read mostly like her romantic comedies, and this one was definitely not that. And she's like, so what genre is? I'm like, that's a trick question, right? You know that I don't know genres. You know I won't get this right. And I kind of tried to go, it fits in this and this and this. And is there a subgenre of this? Because I feel like it could kind of be over here. And that's one of the hard things is that some people seem to know that there are these rules for these genres. And if you don't fit there, then you can't really sit comfortably in that.
Mm-hmm.
But Lord help me, there's no cheat sheet on the internet that says, here are what the genres are.
And and it's also not like a cocktail. Like we don't know which things mix well with each other. You know,
Capri Sun and vodka? Don't. I learned that.
Oh, I would argue depending on the flavor of Capri Sun and depending on if you're in college or not.
Okay, so were we in college?
Law school counts as college.
I may have still, I want to say I was in law school. I'm trying to remember when this happened, but I was camping and I could ask my friend Renee what time it was when this was. It would have been law school-ish or maybe college. And again, it was Capri Sun and vodka because we'd send the boys out to get drinks, and that's what they came back with. And we're like, really?
I know I've had Capri Sun like lemon drink and vodka.
Okay,
I know for a fact
was not
I've
lemon.
had that.
I want to say it was like Malibu Cooler or something.
Is that the blue one?
I don't even know. Pacific Cooler, Pacific Crush. Now I don't remember any of my Capri Sun flavors because I can't, as a mom, I don't give my kids Capri Sun. You know why? They can't do the stupid little pouches. Yeah. So the box is a lot easier. Pouches are impossible to open. They're not, I don't like those.
Even for grown-ups.
No, I can't do it. But genre.
They don't
always mix. You're right.
They don't always mix. Because I always like to say like, oh, like I write literary horror or literary such and such. And I've had people go like, literary horror? What does that even mean? And I'm like,
read it.
I don't know. I know. Like, you tell me. This is what I've been told by people who write literary fiction.
Exactly. Well, and so even the word literary, I feel like is kind of loaded because it was never a term I applied to myself, but I had it applied to me by people in the industry who are like, this is literary. And I'm going, is that a good thing or not? And then, of course.
Does that mean it won't sell?
Laurie's giving us some tips. You have to mix it up. Cream soda with vodka is lovely and a nice bite. Have you done cream soda and vodka?
No.
I don't actually know if I even like cream soda, so I'm not sure I want to make.
I know I did when I was a kid, but I don't.
But you probably didn't have vodka as a kid.
I know.
Probably.
I did not.
Okay, just checking. You're like,
I had to think about it. I was
other things I may have had underage was vodka. Nope, not one of them.
I mean, I definitely had vodka when I was underage, but as a kid.
As a kid who's like cream soda age.
Yeah.
8. I don't know. But yeah, as far as going, okay, what does literary mean? Some people think, oh, well, it's pretentious. Other people say, oh, it means it has no plot. Other people just say, it means it won't sell. Oh, it means you're getting a much smaller advance because it's literary.
It can be all of those things.
It's all of those things and more. Yeah, I don't even really know what those things mean, but it was interesting because I was talking with a writer friend a couple days ago, and we were talking about what things draw us to certain books. And we were ranking like plot, characters, prose. And for me, I was like prose 1, characters 2, plot 3rd. he was completely flopped. He was like, unless the prose is so clunky I can't read it, I don't even care. And my jaw just kind of. But I realize everybody has different preferences about like what draws them in. And for me, not that I don't want a good plot. And if there is, whatever the plot is, has to be believable and engaging. But I don't pick up a book because I think the plot necessarily sounds amazing.
Yeah, the plot is what I'm there for the least.
Right. And
I think definitely the prose, because I'm a huge like sucker for atmosphere and language. But prose and characters for me kind of go hand in hand. And the characters don't need to be likable. They just need to be like well crafted and engaging. Interesting.
Yeah, because you're not going to engage with one where you're just bored by them. So it's not so much relatable, because I mean, I definitely don't want to relate with some of the characters that make a really interesting story.
I don't want to relate with the characters that I write.
Yours are also sad.
Well, that's the literary part.
Well, that's true. Which is when we joke. We're like, yes, you have the sad versions of the characters, and mine have their happily ever after in the romance. Only for my romance. Yeah. I mean, I don't generally write super sad endings. That's not usually what I do.
I try to write ambiguous endings.
Yeah. I do the ambiguous. When I'm literary, when I'm speculative, I'm more ambiguous. With my contemporary romances, I'm pretty
that needs an HEA, a happily ever after.
Because there's a genre
or happily for now.
At any given time, you can find somebody arguing on Twitter about whether romances must have an HEA. Yeah,
I think they do, or else then it's a love story. This is what I was told by somebody in the industry. They said if it doesn't have a happy ending, then it's a love story. It's not a romance.
A romance requires the happily ever after, or at least the HFN, happy for now.
No.
And that's fine. And I just think it's funny because there's always people willing to argue about it, where it's like, well, don't confine me by your genre expectations. And it's not really one person's expectations, but it is the romance reader's reason for reading it. And
you don't want, you're calling it a romance is promising the reader something, and if you're not going to give it to them, you're going to have an angry reader, or at least a disappointed reader.
They want their mistletoe, man. They want their mistletoe.
They do. We could talk about this forever. Honestly, like I would talk about genres and what genre are we? And
I know, but we do. You and I do it on our texts, which fortunately people don't have to read. Like, are you guys on this again? Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Still figured it out.
We're still confused.
Yep, still confused.
I feel like the main things that we mention in our texts, and I'll just do this as our year-end text wrap up. Genre stuff. What genre are we? What genre is this? Is this a word? Random insert pseudo word. Is this a sentence? We do that a lot. Does this sentence make sense? Then there's Adam Driver stuff.
There's also a lot of me going, I don't want to type this email. Am I going to type this email? No, I'm not typing this email. I might.
Yeah, there's that.
I'm thinking about it.
There's that.
Unfortunately, nobody has to read those. Well, except you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But that's okay. We have one brain. So I need to know if my brain, the other half of my brain is busy sending an email, then I don't need to send any emails.
I won't bother with the emails today. Yeah. No, but we've read so many amazing books in so many different genres, and so many books that we go, I don't even know what genre this is. And we've read plenty that were definitely, this was a horror, or this was suspense. We've had some, I will have a category of most misleading title from a book I really enjoyed. Do you know which one that was? Do you remember that one?
Oh, I do.
Remember? Most misleading title for me is The Dead Girl in 2A, which I'm trying to remember. It was Carter. I'm blanking on Carter's last name.
Yeah, because I read The Dead Girl in 2A, and then I read The Dead Husband.
Right.
And both of those, I feel like
those are misleading.
I was like, oh, that's not where I thought they were getting their title from.
Because Dead Husband involved a dead husband, but that was not the only, or even I would say primary driving narrative of the book. But the other one that I read was The Dead Girl in 2A. And if you look really carefully at the cover, you see there's an airplane. And then that's when you realize they're referring to the seat 2A.
Right. And I always thought it was going to be about an apartment, like the woman in the cabin and the woman in the window. And the woman in the cabin in the window, And
ultimately she wasn't dead. So there's that.
Oh. So on that note.
Misleading title. You're like, that's not a category.
I was going to say that's a Voxy category.
That's a Voxy category of most confusing title that confused the hosts the most.
On that note, I am going to say this is our year-end wrap-up, but we will be back next week. We don't know exactly what time because we have CJ Cook and she is in Scotland. So we obviously can't go live at our normal time because it would be the middle of the night for poor CJ.
We've done that with people, and if we know better,
we did that with CJ when we had her on the show last time.
Right. And who did we have recently? We had
the people from I can
well, one of them
feel
from
it just below the
beneath the ribs. So
yeah.
Janina Matthewson was in the UK, and I didn't know that, but we had somebody else was also like a midnight one, and I'm trying to remember who that was. It was before that.
Yeah. It was recently.
My brain is just shut down going, nope, don't remember.
Don't remember.
Oh, was it A Good Death? Was it A Good Death? Was that the one where she... I think it was.
Yes, I think it was too.
That's
those are two great books too. Yeah, I Feel It Just Below the Ribs was also another one of my favorites of this year.
Yes, it absolutely was. Found
manuscript. Again, language.
Okay, best found manuscript. I think that was the only one we read this year too. Best found manuscript that we just happened to find on our show.
So thank you, Allison, for everything. Thank you, Roman Saratin, our producer. Thank you, Pam Stack, our executive producer. This has been a copywritten podcast by the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and we will see you all next week. We are waving bye.
Bye.